friends, welcome back to the Tiny House Concierge. My name is Alaska. I am your Tiny House Concierge, and today we're going to talk about why tiny houses are so expensive. I know that it's easy to think that tiny houses are going to be cheaper because they're smaller, and then we get online and we start researching them, and all of a sudden it's like the price is just like... So, let's collectively take a tiny house breath here and calm down for a second so that we can understand what is accounting for rising prices and see what the different elements are, because we can't fix something that we don't understand. And if there's wiggle room in there for your particular situation, you'll want to know where to look or what elements to address. So, before we get into it, this is a new channel. If you would be awesome and hit the subscribe button, that would be very cool. If you're not there yet, hitting the thumbs up button helps as well. All right, so why are tiny houses so expensive? Well, friends, first of all, you're building a house. And I know that it's a smaller house, but even though you might have less floor space or less wall space, you still have to have all of the major systems of a house. You still have to have appliances. You still have to have electrical done. You still have to have plumbing and hot water heaters and all of that kind of thing. And so even though floor space is smaller, flooring is not the expensive part of the equation. Drywall or shiplap, that's not the expensive part of the equation. The expensive part of the equation is the major systems. And you don't get out of purchasing those by choosing a tiny house over a regular house. It might be a little smaller or a little cheaper, like of a hot water heater that you buy for a tiny house than a regular house, but it's not going to scale, if that makes sense. So, appliances and all these systems, like, that's part of what makes tiny house expensive. All right, next reason that makes tiny house expensive: labor. Labor is not cheap, especially something like building or like that kind of craft work. It's expensive, and a tiny house takes, you know, if you hire two guys for several, or two humans for several months to build your house, like, I don't know what they're working for. Like, if you call it $50 an hour, what's $50 an hour times two guys times several months? Like, two humans for several months at $50 an hour. I don't do public math, but do the math. Figure out what that would cost. And that'll kind of give you some remote idea of what you're looking at in labor. And I don't know what builders would cost in your area, so look it up. That $50 is my best guess right there on the spot. Labor is not cheap. If you can build your tiny house yourself, that's very cool. You'll just have to figure out where and how to get access to tools and have the knowledge, but yeah, labor is definitely a place you could save. Okay. The next reason tiny houses are so expensive is the trailer. Friends, traditional foundation houses don't have trailers, and the trailer adds a significant cost to the price of a tiny house. Most of the new tiny house trailers that I am seeing are somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000. It's definitely a heavy-duty trailer. So please do not think that you can just get anything that's a trailer, like a boat trailer or something, and just build a tiny house on it. Tiny houses are way heavier than boats. They're way heavier than RVs. You want to make sure that you have a trailer that can support the weight. Now, that being said, maybe there's an opportunity to get a deal on a trailer somewhere. On a proper trailer that would make the weight happen. Maybe there's a possibility to work with a builder and say, hey, can I provide the trailer? I don't know. But it's another option that's worth exploring if you're looking to take down the price of your tiny house a little bit. Just make sure you do your due diligence. Okay. All right. Another reason that tiny houses are getting so expensive. I know you don't want to hear this, but people are getting fancier. They're getting fancier and fancier and fancier. Friends, once upon a time, people built tiny houses that didn't have running water. Okay? They didn't have like full flush toilet bathrooms. They didn't have double lofts. They weren't 400 square feet. They were like 150 square feet or smaller. Tiny houses have gotten so much fancier. And it's because people are having fun. People are requesting them. Clearly people are buying them or they wouldn't be being created. Many of the early tiny houses were built for just that, for very simple living. And as more people come to the movement, we're seeing a broader variety of needs that are needing to be met. And for some people, they want to live more of a traditional life or have more of a traditional feel of house or luxury, but they want to do it on a smaller square footage, a smaller footprint. And a tiny house is a great way to do that. There's not a good reason or a bad reason. This isn't a good or bad thing. But it will help to explain how tiny houses have gone from like being priced over here to being priced way over here. So they're getting fancier. I have a sauna in my bathroom, you guys. I didn't even have a sauna in my bathroom when I lived in a regular house. Like, they're getting kind of cushy. So, another reason. You can make your tiny house less cushy. If you're looking to take the price down, make it a little less cushy, and that will definitely help. Okay, another reason tiny houses are getting more expensive. Supply and demand. There's a lot of people that want tiny houses right now. And builders are like working as hard as they can to keep up with the demand. But the more demand, when demand outweighs supply, they get to charge more. That's just kind of the nature of it. And we're seeing that happen. Most builders do have build lists. And so if going tiny is something that you're set on and you're ready to do, one thing that you'll want to consider is getting on a build list sooner rather than later, because you want to have a realistic timeline and idea of what's realistic with regard to your going tiny journey. So, supply and demand. A lot of people out there wanting tiny houses. Okay, next reason that tiny houses are getting more expensive. Increase in builder popularity. So certain builders are starting to get really popular. And when people get really popular, again, demand comes in and they start raising their prices. And part of that's that, they have more experience and people are willing to pay more for their houses because they value them at a higher level. And so some builders are seeing popularity bumps and their prices reflect that. All right. And finally, the last reason why tiny houses are getting so expensive is increase in building materials. And I'm sure if you have been looking into tiny houses at all, you've kind of heard that has been the case. It is the case. And I've heard a rumor that those prices are starting to drop a little bit, but it may still be a little while before we see that at the consumer level. So will it ever drop to what it was in 1990? Probably not. But could it come down a little bit? Maybe, hopefully. We'll see. Let's all keep an eye on it. But either way, the increase in building materials is definitely part of the reason you are seeing more and more expensive tiny homes. So, friends, if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you would subscribe, that would be amazing. And I high five you through the internet. And finally, in the comments, I would love to know what you want to pay for a tiny house and what kinds of prices you are finding at the price point that you are attracted to. Does that make sense? Like, the houses that you like and that you want to buy, how much do those cost? And then I also want to know how much you actually want to pay. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Again, my name is Alaska. This is the Tiny House Concierge, and I will see you in the next video.